Okay, members, the committee has received apologies from Chairperson Mike Nesbitt, Michael Copeland and Alex Atwood has other meetings that he is in attendance of this afternoon as well. Are there any other apologies?
Alex said he's doing an interview for The View, so he'll be back down when that completes.
We'll await his attendance, no problem. Okay then, agenda item 3, Chairperson's business. At page 13 of your pack, members, you'll see an invitation from Contact a Family to the launch of its Counting the Costs report on the financial cost to families supporting a child or children with disabilities. This event is due to take place on Tuesday the 2nd of December at 2:30 in the Long Gallery. Are members content to respond directly if they wish to attend?
Agreed.
Okay. Committee invitations then are at page 52 of your pack. If members are content to respond directly. Agenda item 4 then is the draft minutes of the meeting of the 5th of November.
Agreed.
Find a copy of the draft minutes. Members content to agree? Agreed, thank you. Okay, matters arising. The draft budget 2015-16, at page 25 you'll see a memo from the Committee for Finance and Personnel advising of its process in producing a coordinated report on the draft budget, and at page 27 is a research paper commissioned by the Committee on lines of questioning. It was agreed at last week's meeting that the Chairperson write to Ministers to invite them to brief the Committee on the 2015-16 budget proposals for OFMDFM, and we're awaiting a response to that invitation. It was also agreed last week that OFMDFM sponsored bodies should be contacted when the departmental spending plans are available on the website. However, it is not yet known when they're going to be available. So given the short time frame the committee has to consider the matter, are members content to write to the sponsored bodies now about their priorities and the level of engagement with OFMDFM regarding the budget?
Agreed.
Agreed? Okay. Jimmy, you look dubious there, but I'll move on quickly before you have time to say no. Budget scrutiny training. It's proposed that a budget scrutiny presentation and workshop be provided to committees to assist with scrutiny of the 2015-16 draft budget. This will include an overview of the budget and potential lines of questioning. It will also highlight issues relevant to the department's budget. It's going to be important training, and it will be delivered to the committee at the beginning of next week's meeting in closed session, if members can do their best to be there in attendance for that.
Up to?
Yeah, 2 o'clock, yeah.
How long will it be? That actually is scheduled to last, sorry Chair, about 45 minutes.
Okay. And is it based around the research paper that was provided? Because it's quite technical, that research paper. Useful, technical, so...
It'd be good to go into it in a bit more detail.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it'll probably address those issues and what this committee might then want particularly focus on in terms of the department as well, and just the background of the overall budget as well.
Maybe if we could...
I was just going to ask, is it department specific? Because remember the last one was DRD, all the examples we were getting.
Yeah, maybe if we could provide the raised paper to the trainer in advance to say this is something that we've been working on as well. Is that possible?
They will be the ones who are actually delivering
okay.
it. So, but they have undertaken to look particularly at issues relating to each department. Okay. So there should be more than the previous occasion. Yeah.
Okay. At page 73 then of your table pack, you'll see correspondence from the Committee for Finance and Personnel regarding underspend in the financial transactions capital budget. This indicates that there is a possibility that some of this ring-fence money will be lost as no new bids for suitable projects were received in either of the 2 previous monitoring rounds. Are members content to forward the correspondence to the department to see if they are going to bid for suitable projects for which OFMDFM could use this funding? Content. Okay, agreed. Okay, in relation to the inquiry into building a united community, since we met last week, we've received 2 further submissions to the inquiry from the Northern Ireland Women's European Platform and the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development. These are available to members to view in the inquiry folders of on the ECP system. and will be uploaded to the committee's website. Would officials be content to assist members if they need to locate
Absolutely,
those?
yeah,
No
absolutely.
problem. Okay then, at page 33 or 38 is the list of outstanding correspondence. Do members have any comments? Happy to agree. Okay. Agenda item 6 is correspondence. If I can refer you to the correspondence summary sheet at page 42, this details the correspondence received since our last meeting, and I'll ask the clerk to highlight the items of correspondence that require a decision from the committee. Members are, of course, free to highlight any correspondence which they wish the committee to deal with specifically.
Thanks, Chair. I would just like to refer members actually to one item in its in table papers at page 75. And it's a response from the department regarding sickness absence in OFMDFM, and it goes back to correspondence that this committee received from the Finance Committee because they're looking into it in more detail regarding the NISRA report. So it's just to check if members are content to forward the departmental response on to the Finance Committee for their information.
Content. Great.
That's it.
Okay,
Thanks, Chair.
agreed. Okay then, move to agenda item 7. A
Sorry.
brief.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Chair,
Sorry.
just
Yep, go
before,
ahead.
a note in the correspondence there, we have the Equality Commission have submitted their annual report and accounts. Just on that point, can I request that we have the Equality Commission along here to give us an overview of their work? It's been quite some time, and there are new members.
Okay.
Yep.
Members agreed?
Thank you.
Okay. That's great. What members wish to discuss any other items of correspondence? Move on to our briefings.
Copies of that report, the Quality Commission.
Yeah.
The annual report and
Yeah.
accounts.
Do we have a copy
Make
of
sure
that?
members get that.
Get you one, yeah.
Okay, no problem.
Chair, I forgot to say that I will have to leave at 3:30.
No problem. No problem. Make a note of that. Okay, we'll move on then to agenda item 7, which is our briefing by the Belfast Islamic Centre. The centre attendees here, yeah? Okay. Members, on the 1st of October, the chairperson and I met with representatives from the Belfast Islamic Centre to discuss issues regarding the Muslim population in Northern Ireland and proposals for a new Islamic Centre in Belfast. So, delighted to welcome our chairperson and treasurer of the Belfast Islamic Centre, Dr. Tareen and Dr. Al-Wazan. You're very welcome, gentlemen, to the committee.
Thank you.
The committee, further to our meeting with you, had written to ministers requesting that the executive considers how it can best support the Belfast Islamic Centre, and our response to that correspondence is available in our packs at page 50. Now, that correspondence details the fact that OFMDFM junior ministers had met with representatives of the Belfast Islamic Centre to discuss a proposed project to build a new cultural centre, and following this meeting they wrote to the Minister of Enterprise, Trade and Investment to express support for the construction of a new centre, and requested that the Minister convey support should the opportunity arise during trade missions. The junior ministers also suggested that the centre make contact with DSD and Belfast City Council to discuss the project, and made clear that any such project would obviously be subject to normal planning process, and that funding for the purposes of construction of a worship space wouldn't be possible. But they stated clearly that they very much value the contribution of the local Muslim community and consider that a new inclusive centre has the potential to have a very positive impact here in Northern Ireland. So we also have a briefing paper from the Belfast Islamic Centre at page 79 of our table pack today, members, and we're delighted to welcome you to give evidence to the committee, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, I would like to introduce Wasif Naeem. Unfortunately, Dr. Salim Tareen didn't make it today.
Okay.
So Wasif is the secretary, the executive secretary of Belfast Islamic Centre.
Very helpful.
I am Raid Wazan, the treasurer and the spokesman of the Belfast Islamic Centre. Well, probably from the paper we send you, Belfast Islamic Centre represent all the Muslims in Northern Ireland. There are other Muslim communities in Coleraine or Newry or Portadown. They have small centres as well, and they elect Belfast Islamic Centre to represent them in the media and in the politics as well. Okay, so we represent all Muslims of Northern Ireland. We at the moment in a desperate need for a facility. Belfast Islamic Centre is not only a place of worship. The mosque, which is within the centre, is a very small part of our activities. There are lots of social, economic, and educational activities on the centre. In the paper I send you, I mentioned some of them. Like we have in Arabic, English schools, we have mother and toddlers, we have women groups, elderly groups, and social events, educational events, lots of activities we do. The main thing we need, which is limiting our capability at the moment, is the premises. So we are now trying to find an alternative, either an existing building and convert it, or a piece of land and build a new cultural center. Everywhere we look, it's very hard to find the right premises to convert. So we are now seeking to get a land from the government and we build it. So the first thing we are asking the government here is to provide us with a land, and we will build the center on it. Definitely, in the current economic climate, it's unfair for us to ask for a cash. So we are not asking the government to step in and pay some cash for the project. But I'm sure the government can provide a land, similar to other community who got a land from the government and they built their own center. Okay, so that's one thing we would like the government to help us with. The second thing, which definitely the government could help us a lot, is to get us in contact with the Gulf States governments. Gulf States governments fund lots of Islamic centers around the world. If I give you an example, for example, to our nearest city, which is Dublin, the United Arab Emirates, or in particular the Dubai government, fund to build an Islamic center in Dublin. They funded about 20 years ago, and also they pay 1.5 million euro as a running cost. So this is a huge sum of money coming to the local economy. If the Northern Irish government support us and get in touch with these governments, I am sure they are willing to come and contribute to build the center. It's easier for the ministers and the First Minister and Deputy First Minister to contact these governments and get their help. It's much easier than if we go ourselves and seek a government help. Also, it will give a good impression that the Muslim community is welcome in Northern Ireland, and we are contributing to the local social and economic situation of Northern Ireland. The third thing which you could support us with, we need we both, or all the executive in Belfast Islamic Centre, are volunteers. We need a project manager. So if you could ask the Strategic Investment Board to get involved in this project, they could see the whole picture of existing lands and building in Belfast, and they could advise you and us which is the best appropriate site for the center. Also, I would like to mention the benefit of having such a center economically. First thing is going to help a lot Queen's University. If you look at most of the international students before they decided to go anywhere to study, the first thing they look is the airport and Islamic Center. So in Belfast, we lack of almost both of them. There is very poor connection between Belfast and Islamic world. So there's no direct flight. That's why most of the international students now, either they go to Scotland, Edinburgh, or Glasgow, or they go now to Dublin. And these people, the foreign students, they pay a huge amount to local universities, and that support the local economy as well as the local universities. So unfortunately, we are losing that because we don't have the center. Also, I could add, we have lots of good doctors. They come here and work on the health service, and lots of professionals, they come here. But after a few years, most of them, they decided to leave Northern Ireland because of the lack of facilities. And I can tell you top of my head at least 20, 30 names who came here, worked in the local hospital, and then decided to move across the water or go down to the south. So here we are, asking your support on this project. Thank you very much. If you have any question.
Thank you. That's extremely helpful. I'm sure members will indeed have questions. Could I ask you, you provide a very helpful briefing paper as well in relation to the services provided from the community centre aspect of the Belfast Islamic Centre, children's education, youth development work, social and recreational programmes, adult education, social welfare services. Could you give us some specific examples of what some of that community work looks like?
Right. Well, if we start with the school, for example, we have a Sunday school to teach Arabic language, Arabic and Urdu. There are lots of people, Muslims and even non-Muslims, now they want to learn Arabic. And because we have a limited space, we only can accept up to 60 children because the place is not big enough for health and safety. And it's break my heart to turn them down and tell them, I'm sorry, I cannot help you, or we cannot provide you this. Okay. On the mother and toddler as well, I cannot have more than 10 mother and toddlers at the same time because of the lack of facility. And when you get a mother and toddler coming to the front door and I say, or somebody in the center say, I'm sorry, you can't come in because of health and safety, there are too many of you here. It's break your heart. So it is very difficult on that aspect. Whenever we have a big celebration, we go and book another facilities or a sports center or somewhere outside Belfast Islamic Centre. And we do that in a monthly or even in the annual event as well.
Okay, that's a wide range of activities then, obviously active. Can I ask, the First and Deputy First Ministers told us that they would write to the Minister for Enterprise, Trade and Investment with regards to raising the concerns in the Gulf states on trade visits. Have you had any contact or response from the Minister for Enterprise?
I talked to her personally because a few months ago I was with her in a trade mission to Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates. Unfortunately, Invest Northern Ireland do not support charity organization because we are registered as a charity. We try to argue that, yes, it is a charity, but we have lots of social activities as well. We are asking Invest Northern Ireland not, to give us any cash, but to help us to get in touch with Gulf states governments. And I know personally that Invest Northern Ireland have employees based in Saudi Arabia and one person in United Arab Emirates. These people could get us the contact or the donors in a few hours of their own time. So if you instruct these officials just to get us the contact, and we will do the rest. But if if it's Invest Northern Ireland contact local government there, it's much easier for them than me, because there are hundreds of Islamic cultural centers around the world try to go to the Gulf and raise some money to build their own center. But if the government here contact the government there, they will listen more than they listen to me.
Okay. We as a committee, obviously, it's not our statutory function to instruct officials, which is why I was asking what sort of feedback you've had from the Minister in terms of providing those types of contacts. Has there been a substantive response in that regard?
No.
Okay. And in terms of the Strategic Investment Board, have you had any engagement with the Strategic Investment Board in terms of your search for land use?
Well, unfortunately, they only respond to a government body.
Right.
So we need any of the government body to write to them to give us the information. Even if we write to them, they will not respond to us.
Okay. And the Department for Social Development and Belfast City Council obviously have remits for community services and regeneration activities. Have you had any discussions with those departments?
Yes, with the Belfast Council. We've been in touch with them, and we're trying to identify the sites available within South Belfast. That's ongoing, and we get a good support from the City Council.
Okay, that's encouraging to hear. And the Department for Social Development, in terms of any funding opportunities for community service delivery?
I made an initial contact with them, but nothing has been set up for a meeting or any fund yet.
Okay, they would obviously be two key departments in terms of funding and grant support for community service-based activity. Maybe that's something we can follow up with you. Okay, bring members in for questions. Bronwyn McGahan.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Chair, and you're very welcome. You sort of answered my question, and it was on what engagements are you having with Belfast City Council. They should have a database of vacant properties. I know the constituency that I represent, Dungannon, the council would have that, so you clearly are having those engagements at the moment.
We have an engagement with the City Council. We haven't seen any, they showed us a few lands around which might be useful, but we realize that some of them, for example, either it will have a very difficult planning permission to obtain, or some of them being leased to other companies for a very long lease, so it's impossible to get these lands.
What about properties? Vacant properties?
No, they didn't give us any list. We asked for a list, but so far nothing been.
They should have a list of vacant properties, and I would, follow up on that. Like I said, my own council area,
Right.
Dungannon, would have that type of a database.
Okay.
So I would be surprised if Belfast City Council didn't have that.
We've been only given 3 lands so far, and all of them are rather difficult, as Dr. Wright
Yeah.
said.
But in terms of properties,
Now we haven't been
buildings,
advised of any so far.
in terms of your engagements with the officials from DSD, they have responsibility for urban regeneration, and there will be capital fund there for buildings.
Right.
Have you had any engagement?
We will just start to, email them a few weeks ago, and I, just need to follow it myself, because unfortunately we are volunteers, we have our own jobs, so we have a limited time to do all this. That's why we would love if you could support us to employ a project manager, and I'm sure OFMDFM could support that financially, employ for project manager to do all that work for us.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Brenda Hill.
Thank you, Deputy Chair, and welcome to Parliament Buildings. I'm sure you're aware of the Northern Ireland Muslims and Families Association in South Belfast, and I have actually been to have a look at their premises too, and they like you, are also looking for more premises, and I know they offer English classes as a second language and stuff like that as well. Have there been any discussions between you and this group about joint funding projects? Have you thought of amalgamating, or maybe you already are the umbrella?
Well, we have the umbrella, and also because this is funny thing, he is the secretary for Belfast Islamic Centre and Northern Ireland Muslim Family Association. So he's the same person. And I work for Islamic Centre as the treasurer and the spokesman. Also, I'm responsible for the school in Northern Ireland Muslim Family Association.
Okay.
So Muslim Family Association created because of the lack of premises. But even now we have an extra building that's still not big enough. So definitely if we have a new centre, we jointly will go there.
Well, then, as you will then be, you may be aware that Jimmy Spratt and I are actually meeting with Diane Dodds on Friday to look at funding applications for this.
There's something going on that front, because Northern NIMFA, as we call it, is not owned by NIMFA. It's a rent place.
That's right, yeah.
So that gives us enough problems on its own, because it's literally a hanging sword on us, because it was on sale for a long time. It's been acquired by someone now. So it's just a matter of time, really, before NIMFA is being kicked out from there, and that will cause a huge problem within the South Belfast area, and a lot of pressure on the Islamic Centre as well, because NIMFA is on one side of Queen's University on the Rugby Road, and Islamic Centre is on the Wellington Park. So that kind of covers students on both sides. But if NIMFA is gone or Islamic Centre is gone, even if they're both gone, obviously that's going to be a nightmare. But even if NIMFA is gone, that's very close to the library as well. So a lot of students go to NIMFA, during afternoon, in the evenings. They use the facility, both facilities, a lot. So it's a rented place, really. So it's not a permanent place, and we are very, very restricted in terms of what we want to achieve. We cannot, obviously take down any walls to make the room any bigger. We cannot do any construction on it as well. So a lot of problems because of that. So that meeting is to do with that.
So you're aware of the meeting
Yeah,
on Friday?
yeah. So I'm not sure whether I'll be there or not, but I think Brenda might be. Yeah, Brenda Skillen might be there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Brenda. In terms of your vision for the centre, you obviously referred to other Muslim associations in other towns in, in Northern Ireland. So is it expected that it would have a regional significance for you?
Oh, definitely. All of the Muslim communities around Northern Ireland, they will look at us as the hub. And also they look at us as representing all the Muslims. So if you've seen over the summer events, for example, only Islamic Center talking to the media. No other center was talking to the media. All of them elect us. So in that aspect, you could say we are the umbrella group to cover everybody. And also we visit them from time to time to coordinate a few educational programs.
They are the all organisation, Craigavon, Coleraine, they're all members of the Islamic Centre, and they all members they came to vote in the elections as well. So it's not just just talking like this. It's just there's a formal connection between us and them as well.
And what are the next steps for your project then?
Well, we're trying to identify a site. If we manage to identify a site first, and then the next thing, we need the government help to fundraise from the Gulf States government. And after that, we just have to go through the normal planning,
Yeah.
Okay. Jimmy Spratt would like to ask a question.
Thank you, and can I welcome you along today? And as a South Belfast representative, I do and have worked with individuals from your community on numerous occasions over the years. Maybe if you could just clarify a couple of things for me in relation to the land issue. I'm not sure, given the letter and the conversations that you had with the junior ministers, I suspect that government money wouldn't be available for that finance would have to be put forward in relation to that. But, do you regularly look at there's a lot of land recently been auctioned off, land that has run into trouble for development in years gone past with the economic situation. It's very often being auctioned off.
right?
In fact, auctions take place every 3 or 4 weeks in some of these sites at the minute, and they're very substantial sites. And some of them around Belfast. Have you somebody actually who keeps an eye on that?
Well, we have
to identify through local estate agents and through local, it's mostly estate agents that the fire sales take place from, in terms of some of these properties that are being sold off by many of them are owned by the NAMA Bank in the south. So I just wonder, in relation to that, what you've done. The second thing was, you mentioned that you went recently on a trade mission with Enterprise Trade and Investment to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Were you able to make any contacts during that visit? Was that helpful?
Well, I went to that visit through my own company, my own job
Right,
that
okay.
I work with. But on the side, when I meet some of my own customers, we'll talk about that. And most of them are willing to, contribute. But all these are small funders. We need the government to get involved. And the first thing the government asks, well, do you have any political objection from your own city? So this is why we asked the First Minister and Deputy First Minister to write a letter of no objection. This will be extremely helpful. So regarding the lands and auctions, we are in touch with a few state agents, and they showed us a few places in the last year or so. Unfortunately, we bid for 2 of them, and despite we being the highest bidder, we couldn't get the 2 premises. So we fail in that aspect. But I'm not aware of there is any land available in South Belfast, anything larger than 2 acres. Because, smaller than 2 acres will not do us.
Well, what is the acreage that you need?
Well, at minimum 2 acres.
Minimum.
Yeah.
And it could be premises, it could be, you mentioned the fact that...
Or it could be an existing premises, it could be an empty church, an empty school, an empty police station, and, and we can convert it. So any place it can be converted. It's.
But you continually search the market?
We are in almost on a weekly basis, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, Jimmy. Okay, gentlemen, sorry, Alex, you want to ask a question? Apologies, go ahead.
Afternoon, gentlemen. Sorry for missing your earlier presentation, and just maybe for Jimmy's information as well there. I mean, obviously the centre representatives have been dealing with planners on a number of sites, because one of the difficulties that you would have, as you know, would be that you may well identify a site and then you go to the planners to try to work out are there any kind of obvious problems, whether to do with parking and whether to do with the type of build, whether to do with roads and all the rest of that. So what they're trying to do, in fairness to themselves, when they identify sites, we've an arrangement there with the planning office to go and talk to planners in advance to see if there's any to get any heads up if there's any obstacles in the way. In terms of just in the way in which you're currently having to operate, obviously in view of some of the recent problems that you had, can you give us a wee flavour of how the relations are with yourselves at the moment? How stable is your community at the moment? How settled they are from recent difficulties?
Well, the community consists of it's not only one nationalities. We are more than 40 different nationalities. We come from across the whole world. So we are in a very good harmony with each other. So we don't have any internal frictions. And the second thing, we are trying now to approach other communities. And maybe we have seen some of our work in the last year or so. We are trying to approach all communities with around Belfast, to have a good relationship, a youth program together, visit. We receive every week number of local students. They come to the center just to learn about what's Islam, what we believe in, and this is a weekly event. We have also organized courses for the police or health workers to learn about Islam and how to deal with a Muslim patient and so on.
Yeah, thank you very much for that.
We did, sorry, just to add to that, we did organise a dinner after Eid, after Ramadan, with a number of politicians involved as well. And it's not about immigrants really, there's a large number of local Muslims as well, living here for, by birth. So we did organise another kind of meeting with them as well, just to have more, knowledge sharing between us and them, which was very, very helpful, and it was very, very, very much appreciated by the local community as well. And there was a health seminar for women, so this is all helpful in terms of an overall objective, achieving the objectives really.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Well, I think first of all, given how concise requests have been, that we should take those requests forward by encouraging SIB to engage for OFMDFM to write this letter to the Gulf states if it hasn't been written to date. So each of the 4 requests, I think we should see what we can do in relation to each of them. My only question is that one of the biggest landowners in South Belfast is Queen's University and Stranmillis. Both have huge banks of land, so much so that Queen's University are looking to get the bank of land up at Stranmillis. Moreover, Queen's provide facilities and accommodation to other faith communities. There's chaplaincies for various faith backgrounds. Have you had conversations with either the authorities in Queen's or the authorities at Stranmillis about them releasing property or land to their purposes?
Maybe I can answer that. I work for Queen's University myself, actually. We are actually in the process of getting in touch with Professor Tony Gallagher at the minute, hopefully in the near future, and that's exactly the plan. But it's also to highlight the VC's vision of having 20% international students, jumping from 10% to 20% in the next 6 years, which is almost feels like an impossible task. But this is one of the things I think we can pitch to the Queen's University to have something like in partnership with us. I know there's a Kurtz coming in from here, but there is a real potential or developing something new. I know they don't really support anything religious on its own, but we're not really. It's a not religious organization. It's a social activity center. So, and this is where I think we want to pitch in. University is developing a lot of land, a lot of refurbishment going on. It's all refurbishment because they want more students to come in, more international students. They have the local students, that's fine, but bringing international students is not an easy task, and with the lack of airport facilities, airline facilities, and then there's no proper Islamic Center is obviously one of them, but we're not just talking about the Muslim students, we're talking about international students in general. So they see it more open, more friendly atmosphere, they're likely to come. So it's one of the things we are working on.
My only comment is that Queen's are currently seeking planning permission for the lands up at Lennoxfield, it's up the road from yourselves.
Yeah.
But the primary purpose is to build bespoke, high quality student accommodation for overseas students. And given the point you made about overseas students from an Islamic background looking for an Islamic cultural centre, one of the ways of working the Lennoxfield proposal might be to include a facility for yourselves. And around the corner, the land that is available up at Stranmillis it's begging for proper development.
Yeah.
And you might want to speak to Professor Desiree, who's the chair of the Board of Governors up there.
Yeah, well, that's the plan. I literally just sent an email yesterday about setting up the meeting. We're hopeful.
Jimmy, you want to
just want to come back on a couple of points, and just in relation to the Stranmillis land in South Belfast. I mean, there's commitments given in relation to that. Whenever I was Deputy Chair of Dale, in relation to that land being retained as open green space, so it's easy for a West Belfast rep to say that it's available, and there was commitments given to the local community in relation to that. So I wouldn't build my hopes on that in terms of that open space. Easy to throw it out from one side of the table. But can I ask you in relation to, you mentioned the airports and direct flights,
Yes.
which is obviously a big issue for not just what you were talking about, but all over the place to get more flights into both Belfast and Aldergrove. Have you had any direct discussions with the two airports?
Well, we don't think that's our job, actually. But this is one thing we noticed that students looking at.
Well, let me put it another way to you. What do you think? Do you think that a route, for instance, or routes to where you're talking about would be actually viable, given the population that might be using it? Obviously it's going to be private companies that are going to look at it from a commercial point of view.
Absolutely.
And decide whether they're going to make money out of it. So I'm just wondering, what do you think the business...
The most important routes for Belfast we would see is Belfast, Istanbul and Turkey, and Belfast, Dubai, because Dubai will link you to Malaysia as well. Malaysia, we have the highest number of foreign students come from Malaysia, and even the Malaysian, they have their small center as well, just close to our center, and more of them coming here, and they use the Belfast Islamic Center as well. So yes, Dubai and Istanbul will be the most important routes.
I think actually Turkey has been mentioned in relation to, there's ongoing discussions in relation to that, maybe Belfast City Airport with one of the airlines in the last number of weeks. So it's not a matter for this committee, it's a matter for, it's DRD, I think the airports come under, but certainly there is some discussions going on around a direct flight.
Turkish airline, I think there's something in the news, there might be a possibility. I mean, I've travelled to, for example, I've travelled to China, Thailand, Saudi Arabia, South Africa this year, and every time I have to go to Dublin or London, and I've almost taken Emirates airline in all those flights because it's the central place of the world, center of the world really at the minute. So, and you can imagine if you have a direct connection from here, and a lot of people travel all around the world these days. So Emirates will just open up a lot of routes for you.
The airline issue might be an issue, Chair, that we might want to mention to the DRD committee and in ongoing discussions that trade missions might have as well in terms of some of those issues.
If you allow me just to add one point regarding the airlines. Lots of foreign students, when they come here, you could say, oh, it's very easy to fly to Dublin and come here. But the problem with that, they need to obtain 2 visas for the Irish Republic and here. And that put lots of students off coming to Belfast. So if you could do something about that, if somebody has a British visa, they could fly to Dublin. That will make it easier.
Okay.
Yep.
Other questions? Okay. Gentlemen, thanks very much indeed for giving us your time today.
Just one last point I would like to request. If it's possible to appoint one official from the OFMDFM office to liaise with us on this project, if that's possible.
Okay. That's obviously a matter for the department, but we can certainly ask them if that is something that they have or are willing to consider and to come back to you on that. I'm glad that we've been able to focus on the positive contribution and the positive proposals that you have for the community here in Northern Ireland. I think for the key aims of the government around building good relations and racial equality here in Northern Ireland, and engagement with yourselves will be absolutely vital to achieve that aim. I know that there have been significant challenges and significant prejudice met out against people with a Muslim background in Northern Ireland in recent times, but I hope that you have been encouraged by the level of engagement that is taking place. We will certainly follow up on a number of those issues and come back to you on them, but hopefully this is a start of an engagement between our committee and yourselves, and we can maintain that going forward.
I hope so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, members, so we have a number of actions to agree and to direct officials to take forward. Members content in the first instance to forward a copy of the ministerial correspondence we received from OFMDFM to the Belfast Islamic Centre. Agreed. Members content to write to the Minister of Enterprise to seek feedback with regards to any opportunities she had to raise proposals in her recent trade missions in the Gulf states, and perhaps follow up whether the department has specific contacts with the Gulf states that could be made available to the Islamic Centre. Great. Okay. I think there were suggestions to maybe contact the DRD committee in relation to
airports issues,
airline routes, yeah, and
well, it would really be a commercial thing at the end of the day.
Well. Yeah, absolutely.
A government function.
The appointment of OFMDFM official can be forwarded to OFMDFM. Perhaps we could seek further update from OFMDFM whether they're able to take any specific actions themselves. Is it worthwhile trying to establish contact with DSD via the DSD committee to see if there's any assistance or guidance that can be given to the centre in terms of urban regeneration, urban capital funding that might be available as well? Members content? I think in terms of community service provision, Europe, Department for Social Development and Local Government are going to be some of the key bodies available to the organisation. Okay. Members content? Any other actions members want taken forward, or can't they agree those? Okay. Okay, then members, agenda item 8 is the inquiry into the Barroso Task Force Department response. In line with usual committee protocol, the department was invited to respond to the recommendations contained within our committee report on the inquiry into the Barroso Task Force, and you will find the department's response at page 60 of your packs. The response indicates that the department has agreed with all the recommendations contained in the report, and while this is positive, the department hasn't provided any great deal of detail with regards to how or when the recommendations will be actioned. For example, the department agrees with recommendation 3 that the executive publish its annual European priorities document in a more timely fashion, even though the executive priorities for 14-15 have yet to be published. So there's clearly some work to be done there in terms of actioning the recommendations. Do members have any comments, or would you be content that we seek further information from the department on the areas outlined in your packs at page 57, and maybe some more firm commitments and timescales around how that'll be taken forward.
I think you bring some of the officials along at some point and ask them for an update in relation to, I mean, they're given sort of basically positive
Yep.
response to every single recommendation, so I think the best thing would be to bring them along and say, well, here's what you said.
Okay. If we could write to them and seek their any briefing, any written briefing they can give, and then an oral briefing to speak to that. Okay. Okay, then members, agenda item 9 is the draft forward work programme. It's available at page 131 for your consideration. Are members content with the proposed forward work programme? Agreed. Okay, any other business? No? No? Okay, then date, time and location of our next meeting is next Wednesday, 19th of November at 2 p.m. here in room 30. Adjourned.
I propose we appoint
The Northern Ireland Assembly